Out in a vast universe, a planet identified as Krypton is on the brink of civil war, as the planet itself is soon to face calamity. Jor-El and Lara Lor Van give birth to their infant son amid such chaos and have no choice but to send him away to a distant planet near a yellow star. Hello guys, welcome to the Filmcast. Today I'm starting off a new critique series where I break down some of my favorite films, whether it be comic book, drama, noir, thriller, horror, even science fiction films. And today I decided to kick it off with one of my favorite comic book movies. It's a little bit mixed in reviews by critics, but it's my personal favorite, Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. DC Comics has always been a special place for me, and seeing how slowly they make their own debut of cinematic experiences on the big screen, starting with Man of Steel, I can't help but feel much excitement seeing my childhood come to life now as an adult. DC is filled with fantastical characters and extraordinary abilities that give people something to believe in themselves, and the Man of Steel is no exception to that inspiration. I choose to do this story not because I think DC has the potential to be good or great, but outstanding. Each of these characters shares so much depth that once they start colliding, it's more than just a group of characters huddled up and cracking one-liner jokes. They hold many possibilities to explore great storytelling for talented filmmakers in the industry today. So diving into the story of Superman and characters far deeper than just the explosions and action you'll see, it's also an important question that lingers in the mind. How would the world react to a being like this in the real world? We start off on the planet Krypton, where Lara gives birth to their son, Kal-El. Jor-El, father of Kal, being the foremost scientist of the planet's society, welcomes the birth of his son with grace, but has little time to waste. We do get glimpses of the Kryptonian engravings in the area, where Lara is in labor, and get a tease of the infamous symbol of the House of El, when Jor-El finally lays hands on his son. One thing that makes this opening sequence interesting in this almost Elseworld story is that Krypton for some time now has not had a natural birth amongst its society. So if that doesn't show the importance of clarity in this newborn child, I don't know what will. Also, it is quite unusual that the Kryptonians are not born naturally, as they are born with a pre-existing role in society from birth, which kind of makes you wonder why they would make that fundamental decision for centuries. Is it control or suppressing resistance? As we move past the brief Krypton arc, we follow the start of the Clark Kal arc that sets off in a non-linear format, jumping from present to flashbacks, following the sort of tone that Christopher Nolan did with Batman Begins in the Dark Knight trilogy. We don't immediately start off with the blue Boy Scout most of us are familiar with, but in many cases we do see him still show the characteristics of the Superman we all know and love, just not the finished product. From the flashbacks, we can gather that Jonathan Kent has tried to keep things under the radar and has been Clark's mentor, father figure, trying to keep his secret close to the chest. The world isn't quite ready to know of his existence, and many events in Clark's childhood reflect off his father's instincts to keep his gifts wrapped up. Jonathan Kent and Jor-El are two sides of the same coin. Jor-El wanting Kal to be the bridge of two peoples and guiding humanity to a prosperous island, the other wanting him to choose the righteous path as a man. Two ideals that will make the Superman we grew up with in a realistic sense. He can easily fall prey to the toxic antics that humans are capable of. Being more than them and just, but never putting himself above them, is the card any individual can play. Good or bad, the defining test for Clark is when he must eventually confront his own people with different motives, and everything Jonathan and Jor-El had to say to Clark eventually plays into the character development by the end of the film. For me, one of the big things that makes it believable is Superman finally not having red underwear. No, just kidding. Honestly, the fact that Clark on Earth may look like some average guy who is secretly an alien from a different world with amazing abilities, but none of that really gives him the entitlement to be doing what others dream of doing. For example, Clark could easily be a track star or a bodybuilder at ease and could look for the fame, but he doesn't. He chooses to live a quiet, humble life with the Kents. He's spent much of his life secluded from the world, bullied in his youth, and with no choice but to hold back whenever trouble comes around. He is an alien, and the truth is, even with Jonathan and Martha Kent, Clark still has a bit of loneliness in his eye. Many critics would say you never even see Superman smile in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. But when Clark gives those first attempts at flight or first meets Lois Lane, visually, it proves those critics otherwise. He's just a normal guy trying to do some good in a real world scenario. And through it, he shows the beautiful abilities the Superman character is capable of. One big factor aside from the supporting cast of the Kents, General Zod, General Swanwick, Colonel Hardy, Jor-El, is Lois Lane's role in Man of Steel. With her introduction to the film, I go to what the recent Aquaman trailer mentions, how life has a way of bringing people together. Zack Snyder liked to play with biblical symbolism in Man of Steel, and when Clark and Lois first meet, it's almost one of those more than a coincidence moment in the film. I am to be bold enough to rephrase and say that God has a way of bringing people together. From the moment they meet, they probably wouldn't see that their fates would be intertwined from then on. After certain events that unfold, Lois takes it upon herself to find out who the individual she met really is. To her surprise, it wasn't the simplest task, and ends up being one of the first to start bringing up the talk of a being like Clark living among us. She ties up ends of Clark's history, living and working a normal life, eventually leading to Clark's mother, Martha Kent. After confronting Clark a second time and concluding her investigation, the award-winning investigative reporter pulls back, realizing the importance of Clark's actions, and decides to pull away from her original intentions. Because of that, it very nearly costs her position at the Daily Planet, leaving her ever more interested in the Superman character. One big thing about Man of Steel that I must give credit to is how they managed to use Lois Lane in a useful way than just a few instances of damsel in distress. Not giving any spoilers away, but Lois is a very capable woman, and it isn't so in your face. At the same time, she was able to have an impact on outcomes beyond her reach through information, and it suits her well as also being a resourceful reporter. The most significant piece in her involvement is her spark with Clark. For Superman, it's a lonely world being the last son of Krypton, and a being that this powerful, full of hope, just needed some warmth from a significant other who believes in what his figures have stood for, and Lois supports that. Amy Adams plays the role of a strong woman figure, one Clark can turn to in the face of all that is going on without the need of portraying a superheroine, certainly without worrying about believability. Before I close off this breakdown video of Man of Steel's main character and supporting Man of Steel's most pivotal supporting character is the importance of Lois Lane's involvement in the film. Lois is the one who initiates the bridge between two peoples by investigating Clark from the moment they met. She was the first to bring up the topic of a being like this in our world. While Clark was told by Jor-El the good he could bring to humanity, Lois ended up playing a far deeper role in Jor-El's plan than just a woman who always seemed to be caught up in a situation. Seeing all the things that happen in Man of Steel, Lois is the one who initializes that engagement when she starts bringing the world of Krypton and Earth and humanity. All those things start to collide because of her connection with Clark.
Steve.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Hi. Lois Lane. Welcome to the planet.
Glad to be here, Lois.